Brian Bennett. On the streets, this 24-year-old South Central L.A. native is known as Waterhead Bo. And it is on the streets, police say, he made a fortune. It is alleged that Bennett, with Colombian-born accomplice Maria Villabona-Alvarado, brought 1,000 kilograms of crack from Colombia through Mexico to L.A. streets every week. More than a ton of it every week. It is alleged their ill-gotten gains were laundered in Denmark. It is there that local authorities, through wiretaps, blew the whistle on the organization. 10 days ago, federal officials seized 700 pounds of cash, nearly $6 million being transported by associates of Bennett. Bennett was arrested November the 19th at his Tempe, Arizona home. Villabona was taken into custody in Malibu.
People consider me a gangster, a drug dealer. I don't consider myself that. I've experienced life in almost every form and fashion imaginable. I have dealt in high society classes. I have dealt in the lowest of the low. I come from a poverty-stricken community. I was able to live in affluent neighborhoods and have businesses in affluent business sectors, Beverly Hills, Encino. I grew up with a little bit of all of it. People call me the O. They stopped calling me Ariel and start calling me the O for octopus, because they say I keep my hands in everybody's, in a little bit of everything. And I don't mind living up to that. I like to be more than one-dimensional. 6 or 7 months before I actually met Should, I was ordered by the federal court to pay $100,000 in cash for my federal transcripts, because I had successfully turned my money over. And so when I met Should and David, at this point, even though I was being tried for on a case that there was no physical evidence or witnesses tying me to these cases, I still had the reminiscence of the drug trade following me. The relationship between me and Should took form quickly, but it also took on a strange aura in the sense that I had recently just lost one of my younger brothers, and Should kind of like took the place of that. He was strong. Like I said, he was imaginative. He was crazy at sometimes, but he had dreams as well. So we became like brothers in a sense. We talked like brothers, and we treated one like brothers and respect one another. We were visiting each other like every night or every other night. If we wasn't visiting, we was on the phone talking to each other, working through the day, or I was on the phone at the studio working through whatever daily scenario was. We would talk, and sometimes we would go weeks without talking, and then sometimes we would get into it, and we would have things would be real intense with us in the streets, and so it would be just so we would choose not to talk to each other. Whenever I wanted to communicate, I would either have somebody page him, or I would call. We would talk, or he would call Kenner's office, and I would call Kenner's office, and they would connect us. See, it's important that people understand that it was a lot of people that came together indirectly and collectively to make death row happen, and there was agreements with various people to have a certain type of arrangement. So it's important that people understand that the mistakes was made with myself in the actual initial contracts, and it's important for people to understand the mistakes Should have made in his conducting of business. And it's important to understand that even throughout all the negative that took place, the death row was still able to generate over $500 million, and it was also able to catapult Interscope to a position of prominence in the entertainment business. It's also the same company that encouraged Master P to become a multimillionaire, and Puffy Cone as well. So we have to look at the negative and the positive of this collaboration that started with 3 guys sitting in the attorney room deciding and dreaming and believing that this could happen. Kenner actually became immersed in our community, in our society, when he hooked up with Death Row, and which was strange to a lot of his peers, as well as Should too. Should could be charmed the clothes off a bear. At the same time, combination of individuals who came together, who acted in civil manners when they were sitting at the round table. But in their own perspective, areas of control, they were vicious. Vicious towards the enemy, which we considered whoever that would be.
Studio Gangsters, I'll let my man Knockout tell you about Studio Gangsters.
Studio Gangster is Dr. Dre, Snoop Doggy Dogg, Das, Corrupt, that bitch Rage, you know what I'm saying?
The type of music that we had selected to do at that time was mainly gangster rap. And basically, gangster rap is comprised of stories of street stories, that the life that I had led and other individuals who I was associated with had led. So there was a lot of content by dealing with me or being associated with me that they could use and flip and add into their lyrics and to give it the reality that they needed to capture their consumers. Now they should have decided, and David decided, that the artists didn't need any money other than room and board. They made that decision, not me, because Shug didn't believe that they needed to keep them hungry to make sure that they got the kind of production that they was looking for. There was a concept, or there was an ideology in the rap game that in the beginning it's important to keep the artist focused. And if you make the cat too fat, he ain't gonna produce. Mainly my conversations with Dre would deal more with creative scenarios. I would give him what I would consider the street level understanding of what he was doing and how it affected people in prison, behind the walls. So basically, I gave him that touch of reality. The East Coast and the West Coast thing, as tragic as it has been over the last few years with people actually losing their lives, is truly motivated by economic situation opposed to any personal vendettas. Meaning that the East Coast traditionally created rap as we know it, and the West Coast was able to turn it into stupid, crazy money. So that created animosity, and Shug just inflamed it. He didn't create it; he inflamed it with his ego, and that caused Puffy Cone to blow up because they was able to get behind him and Biggie and represent the East Coast, and then they eventually started to do gangster type music. They just don't call it that, but that's what changed their economic plight. I believe that if it wasn't for Shug, Puffy would never reach the level that he reached. I had confronted him about some of the things that I felt that he was doing that was disrespectful to me, and I also counseled him on the gang scenario, how it was getting out of hand. It's one thing to stay in contact with the streets, it's another thing to bring certain street individuals into that type of surroundings without the proper training, because they are who they are, and that he was in a position to really solidify himself as a businessman, and he should not have mixed the two. He could go into the communities and do the functions and the concerts and the car shows, but when he came up into the office, he was supposed to be able to be two players. He's supposed to be able to wear two hats. He chose not to do that. He called it and labeled it keeping it real, which I called it the steps to his destructions. I never had to use violence to make my point. I was very forceful, and people knew I was serious. And if there was a situation where I had to put my hands on somebody, I mean, that was a situation where it didn't get out of hand. Real gangsters don't use weak people to make themselves who they are. Shug was actually the creator of his own demise. He brought the attention, he brought the federal government to Los Angeles. He brought people from various organizations together to create a task. I did not choose to end our war or our misunderstanding with the assistance of the federal government. And when I did not cooperate with them, they started a media campaign that kind of put me in a situation as if I was working with them when that was not the case.
Calling you a snitch.
Exactly, and Shug biting into it, and other people biting into it, like Little J from Rap-A-Lot, disrespecting me and my family, and not taking it in account and consideration of all the time that I have spent in the community and in the streets helping people. And now they're being branded the lowest form at death row and went home if that was the case, but that wasn't my position. I have to go home the right way. I have to be released on my innocence. Death row went as far as it could go based on the leadership that it had, because Suge became quite a paranoid and kind of malicious in his dealing at the point that he started to destroy his own people. He started to demean his own people, and he started to keep chaos between them, opposed to going into the movie business, opposed to going into other areas of the entertainment business that was available, the apparel business, creating a real empire. There will come a day where it all will make sense. What the impact Death Row would have on the 21st century, what it had on urban music, what it had on urban society, what it had on the industry at large. I'm as street can get. And at the same time, that does not mean that I don't understand business. That doesn't mean I don't have morals. That don't mean I don't have, I'm in touch with my spirituality. But it does mean I come from where I come from, and there's rules and regulations that I stand by. I'd rather die as a stand-up guy than live as a coward is what I'm saying.